Number 15, the caramel colouring trick. That deep amber glow in your glass of scotch? There is a decent chance it came from a bottle of food colouring, not from years inside an oak cask. The additive is called E150A, also known as spirit caramel. It is legal in Scotch, Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey, and Japanese whiskey. The only major category that bans it outright is straight American whiskey, including bourbon. Here is why this matters. Decades of sensory research confirm that darker colour subconsciously signals older, richer, and more complex to consumers, even when the liquid is identical. Distilleries know this. They have known it for decades, and they use it because darker bottles move faster off shelves. The whiskey inside does not change at all, just the colour. Germany is one of the only countries that requires distilleries to disclose caramel colouring on the label. Everywhere else, you are guessing. If you want to avoid it, look for the words natural colour on the bottle. If those words are not there, assume the colour has been adjusted. Number 14. Chill filtration strips your whiskey for cosmetic reasons. Before bottling, many distilleries cool whiskey down and push it through fine filters. This removes fatty acids and proteins that would otherwise make the whiskey turn slightly hazy when you add ice or cold water. Sounds reasonable until you realise those fatty acids and proteins are what give whiskey its texture, mouthfeel, and a significant portion of its aroma. Chill filtration exists entirely to make the whiskey look pretty in the glass. It solves a visual problem by creating a flavour problem. Bottles labelled non-chill filtered skip this step, and they almost always deliver a richer, more complex drinking experience. But here is the catch. A label that says non-chill filtered does not automatically mean natural colour. One does not guarantee the other. You need to check for both. Number 13. No age statement bottles are hiding something. When a whiskey carries an age statement, every drop in that bottle has been aged at least that many years. When there is no age statement, the blender can use whiskey of any age, and they do not have to tell you what is in there. A no-age statement bottle could contain whiskey aged 3 years, blended with a tiny amount of something older to round it out. You would never know. No age statement releases exploded over the last 15 years because distilleries sold through their aged stock during the whiskey boom and did not have enough mature spirit left to meet demand. Instead of being honest about the shortage, they rebranded young whiskey with evocative names, moody packaging, and premium price tags. The bottle looks like it costs $80, because it does. The whiskey inside might be worth $30. Number 12, the 40% alcohol by volume minimum is a profit maximizer. 40% alcohol by volume is the legal minimum for whiskey in most countries. It is also exactly where the majority of mass-market whiskies are bottled. That is not a coincidence. Every percentage point of alcohol you remove gets replaced with water. More water means more bottles from the same barrel, and more bottles means more revenue. A barrel of bourbon aged several years at cask strength might yield around 160 to 200 bottles after evaporation. Dilute it down to 40% and you can stretch that to well over 250. That is significantly more product from the same wood, the same grain, the same years of aging. You are paying for the barrel and getting the water for free, or more accurately, you are paying full price for diluted whiskey. Number 11. Sourced whiskey brands that never distilled a drop. There is a distillery in Lawrenceburg, Indiana called MGP. If you have bought a bottle of bourbon or rye in the last 10 years, there is a very good chance that it came from there, even when the label says something completely different. Dozens of brands buy whiskey from MGP or similar contract distillers, slap their own label on it, and market it as if it came from their own still. Contract distilling is perfectly legal. The deception is in the marketing. When a brand builds an entire identity around heritage, craftsmanship, and a specific place, but the whiskey was actually made in a factory hundreds of miles away, that is a problem. Always check the fine print. If the label says distilled in Indiana or produced by instead of distilled by, you are drinking someone else's whiskey at a markup. Number 10. Celebrity whiskies are almost always sourced and overpriced. When a famous actor, musician, or athlete launches a whiskey brand, the playbook is nearly identical. Partner with a contract distiller, source existing whiskey, hire a designer for a premium bottle, and price it 30 to 50% above comparable products. The celebrity's face does the selling, and the liquid inside rarely justifies the cost. If a brand launched with a full lineup of aged products on day one, that whiskey was purchased, not made by them. Number 9, the 2-year bourbon loophole. To be called straight bourbon, whiskey only needs to age for 2 years. That is the legal minimum. If it ages for less than 4 years, the label must carry an age statement. Once it crosses the 4-year mark, the age statement becomes optional. That means a 4-year bourbon and a 12-year bourbon can sit side by side on the shelf with neither one telling you how old it is. The 12-year might cost twice as much, and you would have no way of knowing why just from looking at the bottle. Number 8. Allocated bottles and artificial scarcity. Every autumn, bourbon enthusiasts line up outside liquor stores for allocated releases. Buffalo Trace, the distillery behind Pappy Van Winkle, Eagle Rare, and Blanton's, has turned scarcity into a marketing strategy so effective that people pay $300 on the secondary market for a bottle that retails at $60. Some of this scarcity is real. Aged whiskey takes time, but the hype cycle is carefully managed. Limited releases, lottery systems, and controlled distribution create a frenzy that benefits everyone except the person actually trying to drink the whiskey. Number 7. Craft distilleries charge premium prices for young whiskey. The United States went from roughly 60 distilleries 20 years ago to over 3,100 today. Many are producing genuine, interesting whiskey, but many others are charging $60 to $80 for spirit aged 2 to 3 years. Some use smaller barrels to speed up aging, which sounds clever until you taste the result. Small barrels create more wood contact in less time, but they do not replicate the slow oxidation that happens over years in a full-size 53-gallon barrel. The whiskey often tastes hot, overly tannic, and one-dimensional. Quick thing before we get to the top 6 on this list. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. If you have made it this far, you clearly care about what is actually in your glass. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Number 6. Tasting notes on bottles are marketing copy. Those poetic descriptions on the back of your whiskey bottle about hints of toasted vanilla, autumn orchard fruits, and a lingering finish of dark chocolate were written by a marketing team, not independent tasters. They are designed to make the product sound as complex as possible, regardless of what is actually in the glass. Independent reviews from whiskey critics and competition panels are far more reliable, but they require you to look beyond the shelf. Number 5. The smooth trap. When a whiskey brand markets their product as smooth, what they are really telling you is that the whiskey has been processed to remove anything that might challenge your palate. It is chill-filtered, bottled at the legal minimum 40%, and stripped of the oils, esters, and congeners that give whiskey its actual character. Smooth is not a compliment in the whiskey world. It is a marketing term designed to appeal to people who do not actually like the taste of whiskey. The bottles that whiskey enthusiasts chase are rarely described as smooth. They are described as rich, complex, layered, intense. Those qualities come from higher proof, minimal filtration, and time in the barrel. Smooth comes from taking all of that away. Number 4. The bourbon barrel surplus is massive and growing. Kentucky is currently aging 14.3 million barrels of bourbon. In 2018, that number was 7.5 million. Production increased 600% since the year 2000. The industry filled 3.2 million new barrels in 2024 alone. This oversupply is already causing cracks. Brown-Forman posted year-over-year revenue decreases. Several craft distilleries filed for bankruptcy. Uncle Nearest went into receivership. Kentucky Owl filed for bankruptcy protection. But here is the silver lining. Oversupply means competition. Competition means better whiskey at lower prices for the people actually drinking it. Number 3. Age statements came back because of surplus, not generosity. Over the last 2 years, major bourbon brands started putting age statements back on their core range bottles. Heaven Hill released a 7-year bottled in bond. Beam put the 9-year statement back on Knob Creek. Wild Turkey brought back an 8-year. Old Fitzgerald returned a 7-year statement. Maker's Mark released a 7-year cask strength. All of them were priced between $45 and $60. This looks like a win for consumers. And it is. But it did not happen because distilleries suddenly decided transparency was important. It happened because they are sitting on more aged stock than they can sell, and age statements give them a competitive edge against the brands that are still hiding behind no age statement labels. When supply exceeds demand, the marketing shifts from scarcity to value. That is exactly what is happening right now. Number 2. Rising production costs are being passed directly to you. The price of corn, which makes up more than half of most bourbon mash bills, has nearly doubled since 2019. Malted barley went from around $5 per bushel to over $7. A new American white oak barrel, which bourbon is legally required to use and cannot be reused, now costs between $250 and $400. That is up from around $180 just a few years ago. Glass bottles surged 20% in cost between 2021 and 2024. Transport costs remain 30 to 40% above pre-pandemic levels. Mid-range bourbon bottles that sold for $35 a few years ago now average $40 to $45. Special releases regularly cross $100. Some of that increase reflects genuine cost pressure, but some of it is margin padding disguised as inflation. Number 1. The industry depends on you not reading the label. Spirits are one of the only consumer products in the world with no ingredient labeling requirement. In most countries, distilleries are not required to tell you what is in the bottle beyond the basics. There is no requirement to disclose caramel coloring, chill filtration, or where the whiskey was actually distilled. The information exists if you know where to look. Natural color and non-chill filtered are voluntary disclosures from transparent distilleries. Age statements tell you the minimum age. The phrase distilled by versus produced by reveals whether the brand made the spirit. Cask strength means they did not add water to stretch the yield. A $78 billion industry built on heritage and trust operates with less labeling transparency than a bag of potato chips. The brands that volunteer this information are almost always making better whiskey. And the brands that hide behind vague language and pretty packaging are almost always the ones with something to hide. If you want to know which specific bottles are actually worth your money and which ones are ripping you off, subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one.